This is Countdown to Economic Collapse, February 19th, 2012. I'm David John Sponheim, running for president for America's Third Party. As predicted, the oil embargo against Iran has triggered higher fuel prices, and stock market increases of 62% have been a result of banks getting loans from the federal government. Most of you are not invested in the stock market. The thing is, the big banks that got all that bailout money used it to invest in the stock market and make money on their money. And now the news media, propaganda, is telling us that this big success in the stock market is actually a sign that Barack Obama will be reelected. Well, if you're one of the average Americans who are in no way affected by the stock market, you're wondering, how is that going to affect you in the long term? Well, in the long term, you get screwed. You get a president who can't agree with the Republicans on anything. You get a president who has virtually left us with 13 million people still out of employment and an economy that doesn't create manufacturing or production. And with the two-party system, you're equally screwed. You've got Rick Santorum talking about how he's going to pursue his family values agenda and how Obama is in favor of the earth and Rick Santorum is in favor of man. Well, I don't know what world he's coming from, but man lives on this earth, and we are affected by the way the earth treats us. Now, if the environment continues to be destroyed under Barack Obama, and he hasn't done a lot to clean it up, I might remind you that BP oil spill happened under his watch because he had BP self-regulate the Deepwater Horizon rig. We are still seeing a degraded environment. Now, if you want a far right-winger like Rick Santorum to dictate policy in America and not negotiate with the democratically led Senate, you're going to see a nation still in a stalemate in 2012, 2013, and beyond. You're going to see a nation that continues to look for answers when we obviously don't even have the right president. Now, when you look around you in your community, do you see things going well? I have a store in our area called Albertsons. Albertsons has lost over 2,000 stores over the past 10 years. They're down to around 200 stores. Well, that's not the only thing that's on its way out in this economy. We've got over 400 mall closures around the country, still empty spaces throughout every mall. You can go to your local mall and check it out. You'll see about 50% of the stores, retail spaces empty. These are the real indications of the economy, not a stock market that claims to boast 62% improvement since Barack Obama became president. That's all fictitious. That's all based on the Federal Reserve loaning out money at less than 1% interest to big banks. And those banks, like I said, play with that money and make money on their money. Meanwhile, you get nothing. You get squat. We get screwed. So are we going to sit back and watch a left-wing president like Barack Obama or a right-wing nominee like Rick Santorum or Mitt Romney take this country into a deeper stalemate where nothing gets done because of this lockdown in Congress? I can negotiate between both sides of the political spectrum. I could be your representative in Washington, working from a centrist platform and a centrist position, and find common ground. Fiscal conservatives like myself can unite with social liberals like myself. You see, one does not have to be the opposite of the other. Both can coexist. And we actually wrote a book about that called Hybrid Capitalism, where the government can get a return on investment and no longer rely on taxes as its sole source of revenue. If you want to check out our book, you can go to our main website at americasthirdparty.com. But beyond that, the problems in the world are getting worse. The Greek debt is obviously laboring heavily on Greece. 19 billion euro payout this month will be financed supposedly with about 132 billion euro advance from the European Central Bank. If that debt swap goes through, they'll be managing their debt a little longer. They'll kick the can down the road. But meanwhile, the quality of life in Greece is turning into a third world country. You can ask anybody. It feels like a poor country in Asia now. No longer does it feel like a European nation. And this same thing will happen to all of the nations throughout the European Union. And it will bleed off into our country and the UK as well. Because what is happening is the legislators are unable to cut their salaries. They're unable to make any serious cuts in the amount of paybacks they have toward their corporate cronies that get them reelected. You see, we've got a cycle of politics that needs to be broken. In our country, if we don't vote for a third party that's a centrist party, we will be stuck with this constant squabbling back and forth between the left and the right. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't like the fact that we have a Muslim for a president. Now, some would argue he's not a Muslim, but obviously his policies have led to more Islamist states forming around the world. Everything from Tunisia to Egypt to Libya, they're now all Islamist states. Now, that means that your president is pursuing a Muslim agenda. And I don't know about you, but I want a president that is not religious. I don't want a Mormon or a Jesuit as a president. I want a president that does not hold religion as his primary directive when he's running this country. And I don't believe family values are something I'm going to neglect, but at the same time, I'm not going to force kids to pray in school. A moment of silence would be nice, but praying, forcing children to pray? Seriously. Now, I believe that this country's moral structure is important, and I believe that we do need to maintain the family structure and get back to more time with kids so that kids can learn from their parents how to be good citizens and good people. All of that is part of the moral fiber that this country was founded on. I'm a true American, and I believe that all of us can coexist and find common ground without finding political disharmony, like saying, oh, he's a Republican, oh, he's a Democrat. You know, that's a ridiculous waste of our time. We've got very little time right now to rebuild our country. And the two-party system has allowed this globalization to occur, where our jobs are being outsourced overseas, and our nation doesn't seem to be able to build up its production cycle. Now, under Obama, you've seen very little progress in this department. You've seen a lot of talk about how great he is, when in fact he's done a very miserable, pathetic job as a president. He hasn't accomplished anything. And if you look at achievements overseas, we've actually been seen as a terrible ogre around the world. We're not seen as a nation that is offering peace. We're seen as a nation that's a warring nation. That's not a good thing for our country. And it certainly doesn't help world relations, let alone trade. So I believe that a brand new face on our government with a third-party president is the only way we can begin to establish a new economic direction and a future for our country. Now, if you're like me, you're completely despondent by the news. It's just completely negative in so many different directions, and you're wondering, when is America going to turn around? Well, if you listen to people like Rick Santorum, fear-mongering, and you listen to people like Barack Obama throwing rocks and stones at the Republicans, claiming that it's their fault, when it's his fault, just as much his fault, and a lame duck Congress's fault, then we have to start getting down to the root of the problem. We have to start figuring out why we can't cut our budget. Now, his proposed budget cuts of $4 trillion over 10 years, frankly, are not enough. We need to cut $1 trillion per year off our budget in order to maintain and grow our economy. So I recommend that we look at serious drastic cuts within the military-industrial complex, possibly cutting our expenditures by half. Obama just signed a $662 billion National Defense Authorization Act, which in my opinion was too much to give to the military-industrial complex. I would have given them half of that. We've also got to see ways in which we can cut the fraud and the waste in Medicare and Medicaid and welfare and begin getting the work for welfare program back on track with sensible living wage jobs. We want to make sure that our country is safe and secure, but at the same time, we also have to make sure that people have the opportunity to own a house. And right now, that doesn't seem like a real opportunity. We also want to make sure that people have an opportunity to get an affordable education. And right now, it seems like community colleges are charging too much. So I have a plan in all different directions to get our nation low-cost, affordable housing with the Homestead Renewal Plan and tie the Pell Grants to fixed tuition rates at local community colleges to guarantee young people a fair-priced education. All of these ideas will definitely help our nation grow. And our plan for education is not invasive. We're not going to intrude upon the states' control over education. We want to give states the free hand to do whatever they want to do when it comes to teaching kids in the way that they know best. So we believe that less testing, More money for states to do what they need to do and more rich content for kids to learn with is the key to getting our nation back on track. So I urge you to think about your choices. A two-party system is not working. A three-party system would indeed work if that third party is a centrist party and can negotiate between the two sides. So think rationally, everybody. Don't think like they want you to think. The elitists want you to think like a programmed robot. Don't do that. Don't succumb to what the media tells you to do. Think as an individual, and I guarantee you, you will see progress in this country. It's not going to happen from the two-party system. They're just going to fight and bicker till the bitter end, when our nation has nothing. And that's not something I'm looking forward to. I'm David John Sponheim, and I support this message.
ATP, you and me.